Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the LWN Network for Headline Hits this Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Thanks for joining me again this morning from wherever you are at. Appreciate you so much. A lot of good things going on in the news this morning, actually, with the big bill. It did pass. We are going to cover that later on in the broadcast because it barely passed. Other good things coming down the pipes as well is I think there's a lot of exposure being done, and we're going to also cover the president's presser yesterday with the South African president. That was amazing. That presser, if you haven't seen it, you definitely got to check it out. Before I get into headline hits, I want to let you know that I will be taking off Monday, Memorial Day. I hope everybody has a blessed, wonderful, peaceful weekend, but I am going to take it off. I have things to do, but I will return on Tuesday. And this is the last one of the week because, as you know, we do this Monday through Thursday, noon Eastern Standard Time. So I am going to go ahead and play the quick little intro. And you guys, we are going to get headed right into the headlines for this morning. So first up, what we have to cover this morning, this is something that we've talked about on and off, but there's a new article out that talks about how our American power grid is getting ready for the next attack. We think we're ready? Do we think that we're going to be able to handle an attack of an EP or something? However, experts are warning that EMPs, cyber threats, and AI could actually cripple the United States. We've been hearing these stories for a while, but the cyber experts are warning that Chinese hackers are already positioned in America's critical systems. The widespread blackouts that recently brought parts of Spain and Portugal into a standstill triggered global speculation. Was it an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP attack? However, the authorities later ruled out that, and the incident reignited urgent questions about America's vulnerability and similar large-scale disruptions and whether the U.S. is prepared for a modern-day, they call it a black sky event. According to the cybersecurity expert and former Army Cyber Institute board member Bryson Bort, the United States remains dangerously exposed to a range of threats, not just EMPs, but increasingly sophisticated cyber and artificial intelligence attacks. We know that AI has come a long way very quickly, and that is the new threat that they don't think that we're ready to encounter and be able to handle very well. He says there are a lot of other problems that are higher probability. The MP thing is a little bit of a distraction, but that doesn't mean it's actually not a threat. Unlike cyber attacks that target software, an EMP disables physical systems like our car engines, cell phone towers, to hospital generators, water pumps. A major attack could throw society back into a pre-electric age, basically with devastating consequences. Now, former CIA Director James Woolsey once called EMPs one of the greatest national vulnerabilities, and some estimates suggest that EMPs could result in the deaths of up to 90% of Americans within a year due to the collapse of the infrastructure. And we've been talking about that here on the LW network and network for a long time about our infrastructure, how it's weak, how we need to strengthen it, and we need help right away. We need to put our money investments into infrastructure here. And, you know, the very first thing you've got to lose is your water supply. Dr. Williams Fortishin, he's a longtime EMP researcher. He said within days, nursing homes, hospitals, law enforcement, they're all going to be in deep trouble. So the Trump administration issued an executive order directing federal agencies to prepare for such an event. Bort said implementation has been inconsistent and fragmented. So it is very important that we do work fast on these EOs that the president has put into place, get them passed, put them into law, and take care of it, because this is something, a vulnerability that we don't need to have, that there's no reason for us not to work on it. We've been spending so much time in other countries and doing other things for other people that we are very weak when it comes to our infrastructure. So it's time we get that buffed up and put back to where it belongs so we feel safer. Next up, we have another one of the judges coming against President Trump in his deportation policies, and it is a circuit court judge. There's two of them, both who have zero authority to do so. As you recall, I reported here on the LWN network, Stephen Miller explained on CNN that he will give a statement at the end of these stories that they don't have any authority, these circuit court judges. But the stories go as follows. The judge is threatening criminal sanctions on the Trump officials, orders administration to maintain custody of child rapists and murderers allegedly deported to South Sudan. Trump's DHS responds. U.S. District Court Judge Brian Murphy, who is a Biden appointee, ordered Trump's administration officials to maintain custody of illegal aliens on a deportation flight that the invaders' lawyers said was headed to South Sudan. Murphy claimed the move likely violated an injunction he issued in April. Based on what I've been told, he said, this seems to be contempt. While Murphy stated he would not order the plane to turn around, he said many aliens and any aliens in DHS custody cannot leave the United States control once the plane landed until he holds a hearing on to determine whether the illegals had received enough due process for his liking. So we've talked about that a lot as well as the due process thing. That's what they're worried about. But we also heard that due process has already taken place when a judge allows them to deport them in the first place. So Murphy also noted that he warned that officials involved in the deportation process who are aware of his order could face criminal sanctions, including the pilots. In other words, he is threatening to turn Trump officials into criminals for daring to remove horrible criminals here illegally from the United States. Also, U.S. District Court Judge Edward Chen, an Obama appointee, said to hell with the Supreme Court in their orders, and he still ordered the Trump DOJ to turn over documents related to its decision to revoke protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants. Judge Chen said the Supreme Court's ruling is not a factor and insisted on a deadline for the Trump DOJ to turn over the documents. In March, San Francisco-based Judge Edward Chen issued a stay on Trump's order to revoke temporary restricted status for Venezuelans who arrived to the U.S. on Biden's parole program. Judge Chen temporarily paused Trump's plans to end Biden's TPS program. Now, the DOJ did argue that the parole programs were discretionary, and it's up to the government to decide when it can cut the program. So here you have these circuit court judges still trying to override the Supreme Court and President Trump's decisions. President Trump has complete authority. Like I said, Stephen Miller, who is the House Deputy Chief, appeared on CNN to give clarification on all these judges and their decisions and charges, etc., that they're doing. And what he stated as a reminder, with the chain of command, the President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States, the Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of its country. And it was written explicitly to give the president the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. This is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to restrict, or to restrain in any way. And he once again says you can go online and read the law yourself. He said there's absolutely no clause, not one, in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review. So remember, when you see these things that are continuing about judges and actions they're taking against the Trump administration and deporting of illegals, why wouldn't everyone want the bad guys out of here, out of this country, that don't belong here in the first place? So, like I say, knowledge is power all the time. The circuit court has no authority over the president. And that's the confusion that some of these judges and the media are putting out there, that we have to make sure that we know what we're talking about when we say, oh, it's just left and right and it's fighting, or it doesn't matter. It does matter, because they're backlogging and trying to backlog the system and cause fatigue and cause distraction. So, good for Stephen Miller for stepping up, educating all of us who, are not law experts, who not maybe understand the full process. And now we do, because he gives complete transparency and understanding of what the rule of law is and says, go look at it yourself. Next up, we have shedding new light on the Biden administration AUTOPEN use. Oh boy, Tennessee Rep Tim Burchett has alleged that the staffers in the Joe Biden administration engaged in a cash for clemency scheme using an AUTOPEN to issue pardons in exchange for financial payoffs. So this AUTOPEN story just keeps getting worse and worse. And President Trump was bringing up the AUTOPEN when he was talking a lot. And now, as time is going on and they're finding out more and more details are coming out. And it's a warning and a red bell to us. That is why every time President Trump signs an executive order, he turns it over and does this so everybody can see that the pen he used is actually on that piece of paper and on that executive order with his signature. It's got all the writing on there, because if you remember Biden, when he would turn that around, the EOs, seems like it was a blank page a lot of the times. And some say it was a light reflection, but Trump hasn't had that problem yet. So this story gets worse and worse. And there's going to be ramifications for this, because Burchett did appear on the Benny Johnson show and stated, you're going to find staffers that were able to take forms, get them, and run them through some sort of bogus legal system. And then what they did was they auto-penned them. Burchett said he believes there was a pay for pardon scheme happening and pointed to a historical scandal involving former Tennessee Governor Ray Blanton, who was implicated in selling pardons in the 1970s. Tennessee has had a history of this. We had a governor, he said, that sold pardons. You can look it up. His name is Ray Blanton, and it made national news. And this was in the 90s. Burchett speculated that staffers potentially earning modest salaries could have been offered up to $250,000 to facilitate these pardons. He said, now, I don't have any direct proof of this, but I'm just talking about history. You've got somebody making $100,000 a year and somebody offers you $250,000 in some safety deposit box. Yeah, said the congressman. President Trump on Tuesday said the people who ran Joe Biden's AUTOPEN committed treason. Big words there. There is also a very good interview on the Sean Ryan show that I watched, and it was regarding Lindy Lee, who was a former campaign advisor and prominent commentator on U.S. politics, who she made significant contributions to the political landscape after moving from China to America at the age of 5. Now, she was involved in the Asian American outreach team for Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. She has been very vocal in criticizing both President Biden and Vice President Harris, claiming that their leadership stifled dissent within their party. In January of 2025, she was appointed to Donald Trump's inaugural fundraising committee, and basically making a significant shift in her political affiliations, obviously, after what she experienced from her Democratic roots. And now she's aligned with conservative politics, citing that the Democrats are a toxic culture and within her former party as one of the many reasons she left. Now, I would highly suggest checking this out on the Sean Ryan show. And once again, her name is Linda Lee. And she talks about the details of the different fundraisers, the parties, all the things that she saw. And like I said, she was born and raised in China, moved here at the age of 5, been in politics through the Asian American outreach since then. And she switched ships, let's just say, because of the toxicity, the corruption. And she actually backs up what Tim Burchett says in her interview about all the different young advisors and people that were working in the Biden administration, that there was no direction, no oversight, and they could really run mayhem to do whatever they wanted to do in that White House. So her interview is very eye-opening and very disturbing, but it is a good watch. So you have more information from behind the scenes. And then next up, we have Elon Musk is back working and talking about his Tesla company. He said on Tuesday during an interview with Bloomberg at the Qatar Economic Forum that he's committed to being the CEO of Tesla in 5 years' time, taking him to 2030. Tesla has faced a lot of issues, as you know, recently, and Musk has lost tons of money as when he started working for part of Doge, which had a campaign of making cuts across the U.S. federal government. But Musk was also in attendance at the Oval Office presser with the president of South Africa, where Musk was born. And boy, there's video out and there's pictures of his stare down at the South African president, because apparently one of Musk's homes and is one of them that was taken over and occupied in South Africa. So he was there having a stare down while that president was talking about the things he was talking about, and basically caught lying. And we're going to cover that story coming up here. And then next up, if you guys haven't heard, oh boy, Jake Tapper isn't mincing any words when it comes to Hunter Biden, calling the president's son probably demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. Now, he's got a new book out called Original Sin that was released just 2 days ago. Jake also stated after his brother died, he cheated on his wife. He's talking about Hunter here, with his brother's widow, then got her addicted to crack. Jake's new nonfiction book, Original Sin, along with co-author journalist Alex Thompson, also alleges Joe Biden hid his son Beau's cancer diagnosis, who was an elected official at the time, and they claim they misled the public about Beau's mental fitness, saying this demonstrates the Biden's capacity for denial and the lengths they would go to avoid transparency about health issues. Now, the newly released book is making waves across all platforms, shedding new light on the cognitive decline of former President Joe Biden, and depicts alleged attempts by the president's family to close aides to shield his mental lapses from the public. However, as much as this book says, and as much as I've seen on it, I really have some questions regarding this book and why Tapper kept the Biden details quiet all these years as he was a reporter on all of this and kind of backed Biden and all this. So, I mean, do you think this is flipping on the Biden family, keeping quiet all this time, and now he's just wanting to do it to make money on the book? My biggest question is, I believe he put America at great harm and risk as he kept quiet on all of this for years while writing the book. You know, he is also a journalist who talks to the public each and every day. People go to him, a journalist, for facts, truth, and clarity. Like we find people that we talk to that we want to see what they have to say about worldly events. Journalists and news people we're supposed to have trust and faith in. And yet we find out he made some serious revelations in this book that he kept quiet all these years while he was reporting and being a reporter. So for me, this doesn't fare well. Once again, it feels like a cover-up of the Biden family's dysfunction and decisions, as well as Biden's decline as he was president of the United States and leading this great country. And now here he is making all this money off of his book. Now, even if his book is telling the truth and what is going on in the book, it still doesn't hold well for me that he kept quiet all these years just so he could make a book deal and get that book out there. I mean, they just don't have any limits of what they will do to line their own pockets. It's just incredible to me. So up next, we have the big presser with Donald J. Trump in the Oval Office hosting the president of South Africa yesterday. It was explosive as President Trump did call out the genocide going on against white farmers, even though the president of South Africa denied it right there. The South African president stated, "We don't have genocide." And to that point, President Trump asked for the Oval Office lights to be dimmed and played a video. That video showed radical leader Julius Malema and other Black political figures addressing rallies, chanting slogans such as "Kill the farmer" and "Shoot to kill." The video also showed threats to seize white-owned farmland and a large memorial to murdered farmers featuring over 1,000 crosses along the roadside. Ramaphosa is the president of South Africa, and he tried to argue that the leaders depicted in the video represented a very small opposition in parties. Now, Trump noted that those parties were large enough to fill large stadiums with their supporters and asked why Julius Malema, in particular, leader of the economic freedom fighters, had not been arrested. Trump also pulled out a stack of papers that had horrible images and details of the white farmers that were brutally murdered in the last few days. It was a few days, and he had a huge stack. These images showed their pictures of how they looked before and after they were taken out. He actually went through them one by one, showing them to the president of South Africa. And each time he pulled a new photo page, he went, "Death, death, death. Here, I will give you these." Apparently, also, South Africa is having 14-hour power cuts, sewage problems, and basic services problems. It's not there. It's not being maintained on top of the genocide occurring. The country is really suffering, and Trump was non-committal when asked whether he would attend the G20 summit in South Africa in November and whether he expected South Africa to drop its case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, and on what compromises in particular he expected South Africa to make. But he had forced the South African leaders that were in attendance in an uncomfortably public way to sit there and look at how their country is perceived while they were lying. Some of the representatives that were sitting there when the video was played wouldn't even look back at the video. They sat there in the couch with their heads bowed down, not wanting to face the actual video that the president put out there. To me, I think it was an amazing move how our president had that president of South Africa, Cyril, and his people, officials that were there with him, sit through that visual of truth and not letting that president or any of those officials get away with denying or lying about the regarding of the genocide that is occurring. It wasn't the past. It is up to these stack of photos, and these images were from the last few days. You know, the whole world got to see actually for themselves who was speaking truth and who was telling lies in real time. And the busy day, so that was an event. If you didn't get to see it, you should really look it up. I know that there's actually a lot of clips out there that you can see, but the busy day did continue as President Trump said he wanted to shake the hand of the Pope's brother. Remember that, because the Pope's brother is a supporter of him, and give him a big hug. Well, he did appear at the White House as well, and he was able to talk with him. And then in the evening, the president did host the 2025 NCAA Men's College Basketball Champions, the University of Florida Gators. He did receive a jersey and did talk with them for a while. So it was really a busy day, like it always is for our president, who works hard for the American people. And then last up this morning, we do have, as of this morning, the one big beautiful bill has passed as representatives worked on it for 48 hours. So the House of Representatives did indeed pass it. Now, the bill was only passed by one vote. It was 215 to 214. No Democrats, of course, voted for the bill, and 2 Republicans did indeed vote against it as well. President Trump on Truth Social did post the following statement. He said, "This is arguably one of the most significant pieces of legislation that will ever be signed in the history of our country. The bill includes massive tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax deductions when you purchase an American-made vehicle, along with stronger border security measures, pay raises for our ICE and border agents." Amen to that. They deserve that. Funding for the Golden Dome. Trump did talk about that yesterday. We reported on the Golden Dome yesterday for our security and protection. We said that there was some money he wanted in the big, beautiful bill to start this. It was just a start, and he did get that. Trump saving his account for newborn babies and so much more. So he did continue with the statement saying, "Great job by Speaker Mike Johnson and the House leadership. Thank you to every Republican who voted yes on this historic bill. Now it's time for our friends in the United States Senate to get to work and send this bill to my desk as soon as possible. There is no time to waste." Now, he continued saying the Democrats have lost control of themselves and are aimlessly wandering around, showing no confidence, no grit, or determination. They have forgotten their landslide loss in the presidential election and are wrapped in the past, hoping somebody or someday to revive open borders for the world's criminals to be able to pour into. And also, men will be able to play in women's sports, they hope, and transgender for everybody. What they didn't realize that these things and so many more like them will never, ever happen again. The president did seem very happy about the bill. However, Rep. Tim Burchett from Tennessee that I talked about earlier was on Benny Johnson's show this morning. I watched part of that. And he was saying that this bill is a start. Now, it doesn't have everything. There's much more work to be done. And he said we need to obviously do it quickly. We had to give some things we didn't want to give that, but that's the way it goes. That's part of the negotiation process. And he did speak about Speaker Mike Johnson as well. He said that, not everybody likes him. Not everybody agrees with what he's doing, but the man seems to be honest. He said he doesn't cheat on his wife, and he tells the truth. He does what he needs to do, and he's solid that way. He said, because if you have somebody that cheats on their husbands or wives, like so many we have in Congress, he said, how can you trust them? He said, so he believes he's a good, solid man, and maybe in hindsight down the road, we can appreciate him for what he did do. And he said, he's what we got. We should deal with it and make the best of it and appreciate him for what he's doing. So that's from Rep. Tim Burchett. And, you know, he's been pretty open and honest about anything. I like this guy. The more that I see him and hear about him and his beliefs and his transparency and his truth talking, I like it a lot. I liked that he said that this is a start. This bill is a start, that it isn't everything that we wanted, but don't be disappointed, that we got to keep working. We got to keep continue. And at least this is a positive move forward. He also did emphasize this morning on the show that we need to really get going on Trump's executive orders, get them signed, put them into law, and let's get moving on this. So I liked what he had to say there, because it isn't all sunshine and roses. There are things that we have to get done, things we aren't going to like, the time frame of them, and etc. But it was a move in a positive direction. This is the biggest bill in history that has ever been passed. So kudos to that as well. And we got the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime, which is pretty amazing. So that is what I have for you guys today for headline hits for Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Once again, a reminder, I'm not going to be on Monday. I'm taking Memorial Day off. I will be back on Tuesday with another headline hits at noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure if there's going to be shows at night through this weekend or stuff. LW did mention we might do one if we've got time and things work out. So, and of course, if something huge breaks on Monday, I will come on and I will talk about it. But otherwise, I'm just going to try to take it easy and regroup and refresh and reflect on the weekend and enjoy it. So thank you guys once again for joining me. I will talk to you soon. Have a peaceful, wonderful weekend, and, you know, chin up. At least the bill got passed, and I'm happy about that. I hope you are too. Take care. God bless. And I will talk to you soon.